Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining today's session. My name is Liam Kilby. I am the Associate Director for the MBA Recruitment and Admissions team here at Oxford, coming to you today from the school, sat in a lecture theatre that you yourself might be in a year's time or a little later on, based on when you're looking to apply. I'm really happy that everyone's joining me for this session. I'll spend about 45 minutes going through some information on the program, a little bit about the application requirements, about the curriculum, about the careers team, and about the college system, and then we'll have some time for some questions at the end. So there is a Q&A function on Zoom. Please feel free to send your questions through at any time. We'll go through them at the end, as I've mentioned, but if it's relevant to the slide that we're on, and I notice that it's come through on my iPad, then I'll address it then and there in the moment. So we'll make the start. Thank you very much for joining. I guess the first thing I want to talk about is just your impression of Oxford that you might have in your mind. If you've Googled the city, if you've done some research, this is a picture that you probably are quite familiar with. In this picture, you'll see kind of quintessential Oxford architecture. There's some colleges here, the Radcliffe Camera, that circular building at the front corner. This kind of demonstrates what half of your Oxford experience will be, because as a member of the business school and an MBA student, you'll also be a member of one of the colleges in the wider university network. So this is your home away from home. This is the college network on the screen in front of you. And the next slide shows you the business school. And this is where I am based today, where I'm talking to you from. No, straight away, you'll notice that the architecture is a little bit different. It's a bit more modern. We have the lecture theatres inside this building. We have a library. We have dining areas. We have small breakout rooms where you can go and work on a group project or do some self-study. Everything you need to complete and work towards your MBA is based in this building. And so your 9 to 5 working day will probably be here at the business school, and then you'll go home to a college, to your privately rented accommodation, and have your life outside of the business school in the college network. And we'll talk more about that in some detail a little later on. One of the questions that my team and I get quite often when thinking about applying for the Oxford MBA is a one-year program right for me? And this is a good question and relevant probably to everybody at some point on their MBA application journey. It's something that you have probably already thought about or are beginning to think about in your own journey. And we will talk a little bit about some of those obvious reasons that you can see on screen. You know, you're away from your career for less time. You're away from your earning potential for less time. You'll go back to earning a salary more quickly than you would in a 2-year program, in those traditional 2-year programs. But a 1-year program, despite those benefits, isn't the right thing for everybody. And it's worth thinking about whether it's the right thing for you. So if you're looking for a fairly drastic change in your career and thinking about, I want to change geography, I want to change sector that I work in, I want to try and do a different job function as well, and that kind of fabled triple jump that you'll hear people talk about, a 1-year program can still make that work, but you have to be very organized with your time. 12 months will go very quickly, especially at somewhere like Oxford, where you have this whole second life in the college network that is tempting you with other things in the evenings rather than getting your head down and reading through your reading list or preparing your presentation for the next day in class. You have to be very strong and very good at prioritizing your time and listing your priorities in a way that kind of gives you this laser focus as you go through a 1-year program in order to make it work if your career plan is very ambitious. Now, we still have lots of people that do complete that triple jump, and so I'm not saying that if you're looking for a big change, then a 1-year program isn't right for you. It's just, please be aware that in a 1-year program where time is quite tight and will work you hard and keep you busy, you'll have to get good at that whole fear of missing out thing and accept that you'll have to sacrifice some things in order to remain focused on the career plan and the reason that you're here. Now, we do have a 2-year program. It's not a 2-year MBA. It's called the 1+1 MBA, and it's called 1+1 because you do 2 different 1-year programs cobbled together. So in the first year, you'll do a master's degree in the wider university in a subject of your choosing. And then in the second year, you'll come to the business school and do the 1-year MBA as your second year. So it's 1 degree plus another degree, so 1+1. And it might be that you want to do a master's in public policy at the Blavatnik School of Government. You might want to study at the Oxford Internet Institute and do social science of the internet. You might want to do water conservation or something in the School of Geography. Whatever it is you want to match it with, you'll do that first and get a real depth of knowledge in your field of expertise from that master's degree. And then you'll apply the breadth of knowledge you get from the MBA in the second year, so that when you graduate from the 2-year program, you're a real expert and leader in your chosen field. This is the only slide we have for the 1+1 in today's session, but I am running a separate 1+1 session entirely dedicated to that program on September the 11th. It's on our events page on our website. So if you're in the audience today and you think, I'd like to hear more about the 1+1 program, then please dial in on the 11th and we'll have a conversation then in a bit more detail about the partner programs you can choose from, the scholarship that's mentioned on screen here, the life of a 1+1 student, and why it might be the right choice for you. This is a snapshot of the 1-year MBA. You'll notice straight away there's, in the middle of the page, there are 3 kind of distinct columns. They're the 3 academic terms we have at Oxford. So it's Michaelmas, Hilary, Trinity. They're the names of the terms that we give them. We'll talk about those 3 terms in a second, but before that, I want to focus on something that's new this year. On the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see a pre-program. That is something that we've brought in for the incoming class that are starting just next month in September. And it allows people to get up to speed with a level of understanding of the core modules so that they can really hit the ground running when they join class in person later on next month. So for example, we might have some people in the audience today that are qualified accountants, have done the CPA or something of an equivalent nature and do accounting in their day-to-day roles. And so when they do the accounting core module, those concepts that you're learning about, the terminology that you're learning about, is not going to be new or alien to you because that's your career so far. But not everyone is the same, of course. So we might have somebody that's been working in a marketing function or working in fast-moving consumer goods that haven't really come across accounting before. And what we've seen in previous years is when they've joined the core module in accounting, they've struggled a little bit at the beginning to get up to speed and get to a level where they have the same understanding or a similar understanding to the people that have done accounting in previous work experience. So the pre-program is designed to give you access to some learning, and it's content that is filmed by faculty. It's almost like an online repository of videos that you can kind of dip into as much as you want to over the course of August the 1st, all the way through to when you join in September. It's not mandatory. There's no pass mark. There are tools that you can check your own progress. There are self-assessment tools. You can see how much progress am I making? Am I understanding these concepts? But we're not going to be checking with you on the first day of term whether you completed the pre-program or not. It's designed to be a tool that you can use as much or as little as you want to get ready for those core modules when you join in September. So that when they happen, faculty at the front of the lecture theatre that I'm in today knows that they can pitch the level of their teaching at a certain height, and everybody in the room should have reached that level of understanding themselves, either naturally through their work or through by using the pre-programmed materials. And it stays open the whole year. So if you're in the accounting module in late October, November, say, and you want to go back and reassess or go back and absorb some of that learning again, then the pre-program module and content stays open for you. So you can cross-reference at different points of the year. And I've chosen accounting as an example, but it could be the same for organizational behavior. It could be the same for financial analytics. We have pre-program modules for everything that is in red on that slide, and that is the core modules of the curriculum. So if we move into the terms, you'll notice straight away Michaelmas, which is kind of September through to Christmas. You do core modules, the fundamentals of business. That's your entire first semester. They bleed into the beginning of the second semester when you come back from your holidays, early to mid-January. You'll finish off 2 of those core modules, but at that point, you start to personalize and really customize your learning by choosing your electives. And we've made a slight change this year. We used to have a curriculum that was 60% core and 40% customization and electives, and we've switched it around. So this year, for the first time, we have 40% core and 60% customization and electives, which allow you much earlier in your year to really start thinking about, okay, I've nailed those fundamentals of business, but my specific, particular to me, career path means I need to get better at these areas of business. We've brought forward that point in the year where you can start to kind of follow your own path and build your own customization options in terms of those electives. So you'll see on the screen all of the second half of semester 2, Hillary, and the entirety of semester 3, Trinity. That's all electives. And that takes you through to 10 electives in total, and then up to the summer, which is kind of beginning of July all the way through to August. And here you have 3 choices. If you want to, you can stay in school and do extra electives, taking your 10 up to 12. If you want to, you can do an internship, or we can offer you a strategic consulting project, or an SCP, as we abbreviate it. And that is a group project that sends you out into business in the wider world as a group of students, and you act as consultants to that business. So we have a range of industries and a range of organizations that we partner with every year, and we send you out as a group of consultants, and you work in that industry, and you help increase an efficiency, you help overcome an obstacle, you help unblock some kind of block that they have at that company as if you were a consultant. So it's not working at a consulting firm, you are acting as consultants in industry of your choice. And that can be a startup, it can be a small charity, it can be a large multinational. We have different locations around the world and different size of industry and organization that you can be placed into based on your own preferences and what you want to do post MBA. The internship is more of a traditional individual internship, where if you want to get your foot into the door of a new company or a new industry, that is your chance to do that. And electives obviously is more theoretical learning in this classroom with faculty, where you stay here for the summer because maybe you're going back to your original employer and you don't need an internship, or you don't need a consulting project, but you want to make the most of your time at Oxford by learning more from the faculty. So you might choose electives. And in terms of split, I would say 40% of the class take electives, 40% do an internship, and the remaining 20 thereabouts will do an SCP. That's generally kind of the pattern that we see most years. So everything above those 2 gray lines at the bottom is the mandatory part of your curriculum. You'll do all of those things, and then one of the 3 options in the summer. And then the gray lines are talking a little bit about the co-curriculars. These are optional things you might want to take. So Finance Lab is designed to get you into investment banking and private equity. The Consulting Development Program is a year-long program that gets you used to the kind of the case study technique, interviewing for roles, getting you connected to consulting firms. And then the Social Impact Lab is essentially looking at ways that you can create impact, either being an entrepreneur, an intrapreneur, working in corporate social responsibility, all the way from a small startup, again, to a large multinational where you can have impact from within big business. And you might want to think, okay, well, I want to do Finance Lab, but I also want to do Impact Lab. You can, they don't clash. All I would say, again, in a 1-year program that can be quite busy, just be mindful of how much work you're taking on and you're giving yourself, because it could be very easy to lose yourself in trying to do too much at the same time. So again, it comes down to prioritization and making sure you're doing the things and following the workshops and the opportunities that allow you to get your goal, rather than, but I really want to try this. Some things you'll probably have to think, okay, I would love to try that, but I don't have the time. I must remain focused on what I want to do post MBA. The final thing on the screen, the Talent Development Program, is a year-long series of seminars and workshops and activities run by the careers team that are based around trying to get you the softer skills that we know employers are looking for from MBA graduates. And we're talking about things like public speaking, or we're talking about things like managing large and diverse teams, or how do you handle difficult conversations as a manager. Some people will have experience of these things already. Some people may not have had the chance in their career to do these things yet. But we are told by companies hiring our graduates that these are the things that will set people apart in job interviews and when hiring into those senior positions. So if you think, okay, I want to graduate with the business knowledge, the know-how, and be excellent at fundamentals of business and understand how a balance sheet works, that's one skill. But I also, if I want to be a consultant, I need to be able to present ideas to my clients. That public speaking is a skill that you won't find in the core modules. It's a different type of skill set. And the talent development stream is designed to get you up to speed and excellent at those softer skills too, so that when you graduate, you have both the idea of how business works, but also the practical skills to put it in place outside of this business school bubble that we sometimes live in. And none of that is mandatory. And you can think, you know what, I'm okay at public speaking, so I won't go to those seminars, but I really want to get better at managing large and diverse teams because I've never done that before. So when that comes round, I'll definitely go to those ones. And you can kind of bolt things on and put that puzzle together that makes sense for yourself and just dip your toe in or out of the water as much or as little as you want to as the year progresses, based on what skills you think you need to get the career you're looking for. This slide just shows you a little bit about the electives that are on offer for the current year. It's not all of the electives. It's not an exhaustive list. There's too many to put onto one slide, but it's a snapshot of some of the ones that we have on offer. The only thing I would say about this slide, folks, is that the electives are an ever-changing list of organic things. So as electives become less relevant, less contemporary, less popular, we may remove them for the year and replace them with other things. So by the time you come to apply, this list may have changed. And if that's a year from now, almost definitely. If that's 2 years from now, then definitely these electives will have changed. So if you want to look at what's available now, the entire list is on our website, and I would encourage you to do so. But please bear in mind that when it comes time to you joining the MBA, some of the electives you see here might no longer be available, but they'll have been replaced with other things. And then this slide just shows you a bit of a front screen of the pre-program. You'll see here there's a button you can click for every of those core modules. You'll go inside, there'll be an online repository of videos and asynchronous pre-recorded content you can consume at your own pace. You can do at the end of the day, you can do in bite-sized chunks whenever you want to, just to give yourself that chance to get up to speed when you join the class in person in September. Again, there's no mandatory completion rate for the pre-program. We would encourage you to make the most of it and do as much as you can, especially if there's an area that you think you've identified yourself where you think, okay, this is an area that I need to develop in, then this is what this tool is used for. Then go in, look for that area and just consume as much of that content as you can, and then check your understanding as you go. A little bit about the current class. And this is the class that's just about to graduate in a few weeks' time. We have a brand new class that starts in September. We don't have that finalized just yet, so these stats will definitely change in about a month and a half once we have that class in place and raring to go. But for now, this is the existing class. The number of students doesn't really change. Some years we've been as low as 310. Other years we've been as high as 350. We're almost always in between those two numbers. This year we have 334. In terms of how international it is, look, it's very international, but I always hesitate to use that as a selling point, because every European school that you've researched, every school will have very similar international exposure and international levels. If you go to INSEAD, they'll probably have more than 70 nationalities. LBS probably has close to 70 nationalities. So it's not really a unique selling point to be this international, because I think most European schools are this way. Some North American schools may not be as international, but that's just because I have so many domestic students that I think they're trying to become more international, but they're still more domestic than international, I would think. This year we have 51 female students, with the first MBA in Europe of a comparable size that's hit the gender parity mark. We're very proud of this. We're only the third school globally to have done so. 2 schools in America did it a couple of years ago. We'll be there or thereabouts for this new class that are starting in September. Again, at least it will be the high 40s, 47, 48. And we're trying to get a few more strong female candidates over the line to get us to 50% again. That will be a continuous aim for us to achieve that as much as we can every year from now on. The last 2 numbers don't really change. The years of work experience is always around 5 or 6, which means that the average age of MBA students here is about 29, thereabouts each year. I've been here for 8 years now, and that number has either been 5 years experience or 6 years experience every year that I've done this. And then the final section about sector representation is one thing that I want to spend just a little bit of time on, going back to that question about diversity and being very international and every European school being the same. One thing that I think we're quite good at is recognizing the value that can be found in a range of professional backgrounds. So if you're sat in a lecture theatre like this one today, and faculty has an open question on the screen behind you that says, what do you think good business means? What do you think responsible business means? Tell me about your experiences in this situation. And the faculty member, he or she, they invite you to raise your hand and you hear from your fellow classmates. We think there's real value and real richness and a tapestry that can be built from having people from different walks of professional life. So I'm going to use two schools that I'm very fond of, that are very good schools, but I'm going to use them in a slightly negative sense. So forgive me, please. And they know that I talk about them this way. I've had conversations with them, so they don't mind. LBS is an incredible school. It's a really strong school, and it's very good if you're thinking about finance. And if you're in the audience today and you are thinking about finance, you should look into LBS. The same goes for INSEAD and consulting. If you're looking for consulting, you have to consider INSEAD. It's their bread and butter. It's their staple. It's what they're known for. That is undeniable. They are incredible at what they do. What I would say, and this is where it's slightly negative, if you're sat in a lecture theatre at LBS and people raise their hands and say, this is what that means for me, because it's known for finance, it attracts people that want to work in finance more than anything else. It attracts people that maybe already work in finance and are looking to accelerate further in that industry more than anything else. And so when you go around the classroom and you hear people's ideas, there's a risk, at least in my opinion, there's a risk that it's going to be slightly homogenous and everyone will have similar ideas because everyone is thinking like a finance professional or is already a finance professional. And the same goes for INSEAD and consulting. So in a way, you'll hear a lot of ideas, but will most of them be similar? That would be a concern that I would have if I was thinking about what does diversity mean for me and how can I learn from my peer group as much as I learn from faculty. We're a school that isn't really well known for one particular industry output. We're a school that thinks about what is responsible business and what impact can I create as a global leader in my future career. And that can be anything from a small scale startup through to a charity, through to a multinational that we've said already. Because impact and responsibility can be applicable in every professional walk of life, I think it's fair to say we attract a slightly more diverse cohort in terms of where they're coming from, industry, sector-wise, professionally. So on the screen, you'll see, yep, finance and consulting are still two big inputs. That goes without saying. That will be the same for every school, but we have this whole piece of the pie that we call global industries. And within global industries, you'll have people working in architecture. You'll have people working in real estate. You'll have people working in education or healthcare. You'll have people that are working in small startups. You'll have people working for NGOs or the UN or the World Food Group, the World Food Programme. We have an Olympic athlete coming here this year in September. He's going to join. He was in Paris just a few weeks ago competing. We have an Olympic athlete that's already here this year that won gold in Tokyo. And so I think it's fair to say that if you sit in a room like this and you hear from your fellow classmates and your peers and they raise their hand and say, for me, this means this, the answers will be different. Everyone you hear from will be different. And that just provides a slightly richer learning environment where you can absorb ideas and new ways of thinking and respectfully be challenged in your own way of thinking by people that have different ideas. And that's essentially what we build Oxford on. It's that respectful disagreeing. It's that respectful debate and a meeting of minds that don't necessarily agree. And you have those conversations. It's why the Oxford Union is famous for its debates. It's the bedrock of what we do at the school and at the wider university. And I think that level of debate is easier to have when you have people of differing nationalities, of course, and different cultures, of course, but also different professional experiences because they've been trained a certain way or they naturally think a certain way, and it might be different from how you think, and that should be encouraged. So one aspect of diversity I think that's very important and that sometimes is overlooked is where professionally are people coming from. So in your research, when you think about what school am I looking for, what experience do I want as a student, ask yourself which school can provide that experience more effectively than the others, and that's probably where you want to at least think about applying, I would say. Just a little bit about the careers team. We've got a few slides on this. The careers team, they're here to help you get the job that you want and that you deserve. That goes without saying. But what sometimes people don't understand is that it's very much a two-way street. The careers team are here for the entire year that you're here. Their job is to help you get the job you want, but they have to understand what it is that you want. You have to engage with them. You have to go and meet them and speak to them and say, my aspirations are this, my goal is this. Because if they don't know what your goal is, if you haven't engaged with them, if you don't go to the workshops they set up or the one-to-one coaching sessions that they offer, if you don't take them up on those things, they won't really understand what your motivations are and what you're trying to achieve. And it's harder for them to help you then because they're not able to work for you in the background and get those things in place while your time is spent in the lecture theatres understanding and learning about business. So it's very much a two-way conversation. Engage with your careers team as early as you can. We've split the team into different sections. So there'll be a finance team within the careers team. There'll be a consulting team, one for global industry, one for tech, and one for social impact. So depending on what your focus is, you'll work much more closely with that team that are specializing in that industry than maybe the other teams that are not doing something that you're interested in. So find your tribe, I guess, within the careers team and engage with them as early as you can and as often as you can to make sure that you are on the path to success. Now, you don't have to wait until September to come here in person to start that conversation. On the screen, you'll see a little bit of a pathway that is open to people that are starting this year, coming to the school next month. They've had access to the careers team since the beginning of June with a few sessions, a few workshops, a few activities that we've been putting on for them. And if you can engage with the careers team from the early summer and not wait until September, all of a sudden the career service you receive is a 15, 16-month service, not just the 12 months that you're here in person. So again, I would just encourage you to start those conversations early, come in with an idea of what it is you're looking to do in your career, and get the careers team working on that idea for you as quickly as they can to improve as much as possible your chances of success. Because in a one-year program, as we've mentioned, if you're looking for a quite drastic pivot in your career, the careers team and you will need to make the most of the time that we have together to make that a success for you. So engage with them early, keep them engaged. If you change your mind about what you want to do, tell them. It's okay to change your mind. If you come in with a very fixed idea and say, Liam, I want to go and work in investment banking in Goldman Sachs in London, that is my dream, then great, come in with that idea and tell the careers team about it. If something happens after the first 6 weeks, 2 months, and you've had your head turned by something else, or something else has sparked your interest elsewhere, and you no longer want to be an investment banker in London, but now you want to go and work in corporate social responsibility or venture capitalism or something else, that's okay. You can change your mind, but tell the careers team as soon as you can, because they will have been working on one thing in the background and they need to know straight away if your goal has shifted. At the same time, please remember yourself, there's a caveat that 12 months will go quite quickly. So you can change your mind, of course you can. You can spend a couple of months thinking, I'm just going to go and wait to see what I get excited by, and then I'll do that for a career. You can give yourself some time to do that, but the more time you remain undecided, the less time you give yourself to get that to be achieved at the end of the year. This slide and the next slide actually are lifted directly from our careers report that we've just published on the website. So we're going to go over some of the information quickly now, but if you want to take a deeper dive into this, I would recommend you go to the website, download the careers report, and have a real read through. It will give you much more information on the types of companies that are hiring, the salaries, how many people were hired by those companies, the activities that are in place for you to be able to take advantage of throughout the year. But this slide will show you the common outputs in terms of sectors where people go post-MBA. And despite not being known as a finance or a consulting school, you'll still see that they are the two main outputs. They are still traditionally why people mostly want to do an MBA. And we can compete with the likes of LBS and with INSEAD in those two areas. So don't think, oh, well, Liam's told me to go to LBS if I want finance. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you should probably look into what they can offer you. But we can offer you something similar to. We can be strong in finance and we can be strong in consulting as well. The right-hand side just talks a little bit about how those percentages have changed over the last few years. And you can see that traditionally it is those two areas, finance and consulting, that will make up the majority of the outputs of the MBA here at Oxford. And this slide talks about the geography of where people go with some average salaries. Now, these average salaries are across all sectors, not just a finance average salary or a consulting average salary. We do have those in the careers report, so go ahead and look into those if you want to. But this slide is just an overarching average salary for each of the regions in the world. What you'll notice probably is that most people, almost half of the class stay within the UK and Europe. And so if you're thinking about using the Oxford MBA as a stepping stone into London, into Frankfurt, into Amsterdam, into other parts of Europe, then that is something that is a very well-trodden path that the careers team can help you with. The other two main areas don't really change. The US and East Asia are often second and third, and they'll trade places and interchange each year. What I would say, the Middle East is a really fast growing area. So if you're thinking about moving to Dubai to work for McKinsey or one of the consulting firms, my careers colleagues tell me that McKinsey, BCG, Bain, they are hiring much more aggressively into the Middle East than maybe they are into the London office. So just bear that in mind in your careers plan on your application and see if that's something that we might be able to help you with. A little bit about colleges. So this photograph is the same buildings as we saw in that very first slide, just from an aerial view. So we still have the Radcliffe camera there, that circular building. You'll see these nice quads surrounded by these beautiful walls, and each one of those quads is a separate college. We have about 40 colleges at Oxford, and 30 of those colleges thereabouts will accept MBA students. So as a member of the MBA, you can be a member of one of the colleges as well, and you get to pick which college you would like. And a lot of people will think, well, how on earth do I pick, Liam? If I've got 30 to pick from, how do I know which college is the right one for me? And there's probably a list of questions you should ask yourself about the experience that you want from your college. So the best way to describe the college experience is that your 9 to 5 working day is based here in the school. And when that ends, you'll go home. If you live in a college, which you'll be able to, should you want to, you'll go home to the college, you'll eat dinner in the college. Your social hub will be the college. So you might join a sports team that you've always wanted to try. You might join a club or a society, or you'll have a hobby that you want to try for the first time. And you might want to be in a college that is very good in terms of facilities or reputation for those sports teams or societies or clubs. So some people will think, okay, well, I want to be in a college where I have a lot of MBA classmates, because some colleges at one end of the scale will take maybe 70 MBAs out of the class of 330. At the other end of that scale, some colleges will take maybe 3 out of the 330. And so you think, well, I don't see enough of my colleagues in my 9 to 5 working day, so I want to be in a college where I see a lot of them in the evening so I can socialize with them and join these clubs and societies with the people that I have classes with in my 9 to 5 day. Other people might think, I see enough of my colleagues in my 9 to 5 working day. I want to take advantage of the fact that in my college, yeah, there are 3 or 4 MBAs, but there are hundreds of wider university students going to their 9 to 5 working day in a different department, studying something differently, but they're coming home to my college, and I'll have dinner with them, and I'll have conversations with them, and I'll be able to expand my mindset beyond the business world and talk about artificial intelligence, or talk about rocket science, or talk about medieval languages, or Russian literature, or whatever it is that they're studying. Some of the conversations you'll have with that second network of people in the colleges will really blow your mind and expand your horizons in a way that maybe a business school that is a standalone institution and not attached to a university could give you. Other people might think, well, I'm maybe in the upper age range of the MBA class. Maybe I'm in my early 30s to mid 30s now, and I want to be in a college that's quite peaceful and quiet, and my undergrad days are behind me. So I want a college that's just for graduate students only, because they're a bit more mature, they're a bit more calm, they're not as noisy, they're not 18-year-old kids running down the corridors at 2 a.m. because they're just excited to be away from home for the first time. And so that's a consideration as well. Is it an undergrad and graduate college that you would like, or is it a graduate only college? And we have both of those options available to you. Some people go for geographical distance from the business school. Oxford is a fairly small city. You can walk everywhere. You can certainly cycle everywhere. But there are some colleges that are maybe 20 minutes walk away from the business school, and some colleges that are maybe just 2 minutes away. So convenience might make you think, actually, I'll go for the one that's physically closer, so it takes me less time to get home and unwind in the evening, or it takes me less time to get ready in the morning and I can stay in bed a little bit later and recover my energy because it takes 2 minutes to get to class. And then the final thing might be something like there's a famous alum of the business school, of the wider university that you feel inspired by, and you want to walk down the same corridors that he, she, or they did. And so you think, I want this college because this person went here and I want to live the experience that they lived because they've really helped shape my life, or I aspire to be them, or I'm inspired by them. So you'll have a list of reasons that are valid to you. They'll be quite personal. There'll be different reasons than other people, but they'll all be equally valid. And we can help you choose which college probably fits that experience in the best and most effective way. You get one pick for your college, folks. And if that college does not take you, we will find you a college somewhere else, but you have no say at all in that second pick. So that first pick can become quite tactical and quite strategic. When you pick your college is when you pay your deposit. So you've applied, we've interviewed you, we've made you an offer of admission, you've accepted that offer, and you've paid your deposit to secure your place. And at that stage, you pick your college. So we'll talk a little bit about application deadlines in a moment, but it's beneficial in terms of colleges to apply early, because if you're going to aim for one of those colleges that only takes 3 MBAs each year, and you're applying later on in the year, there's a good chance those 3 spots will have been taken by people that applied in the first 1 or 2 stages. So applying early is a good thing to do. But if they don't take you, if they're already full, we'll find you a college somewhere else. You're guaranteed a place in the college or in a college, but it might not be the one that you were aiming for. So apply early and get yourself to the head of that line, at the head of that queue, when the college starts offering places to MBA students. This is just a little bit more information about kind of your Oxford life outside of the business school. This is some of the winning team of the MBATs, the MBA tournament. That's what MBAT stands for. It's kind of a mini Olympic Games. It covers everything from traditional sports, I think rugby, rowing, basketball, they're all in there. And then some less traditional activities. There's a battle of the bands, there's a dance competition, there's a debate. I think there's chess, there's other things that you wouldn't expect in kind of an Olympic setting, but it's all involved. So if you're not as athletically minded as some of your classmates, but you have some grandmaster level chess ability, or you can play the guitar really well, you can still contribute towards us winning that trophy. Now, we spent a few years in a row recently winning this trophy every year. It was our trophy. We kind of just owned it. And then we didn't win it this year, sadly. LBS came back in and entered the competition for the first time in a few years, and they snatched it off us. So part of you coming to the school involves winning that trophy back for us, if you don't mind, over the next few years when you start to apply. But as well as the MBATs, which is a chance to send maybe 250 students over to Paris, it's always held in Paris at HEC on the campus there. Apart from the MBATs, this is an opportunity to think about other things that are on offer for you in the wider ecosystem of the university. So the Oxford Union, you can go and take part in a debate if you want to. We'll have some distinguished speakers come in both to the business school, but also to the wider university. You'll have access to all of those things being a University of Oxford student. And then the societies and clubs that I mentioned earlier, a sports team you might want to join. You might want to get up at 5 a.m. every morning in November and December and get out on the river and row and try and make the boat crew for the boat race against Cambridge in London every spring. That's an option for you if you want to do that. We traditionally have 1 or 2 MBAs in the crews, both men and women crews, every year. So that's a path, again, that is very well trodden. Okay, let's talk a little bit about application requirements. I'm not going to labor the point too much on this slide. I haven't checked the Q&A as we've been going along, but I expect there'll be some questions about this slide as we get there. Just to say, everything on this slide is needed in your application. So you'll need an undergraduate degree, you'll need 2 references, you'll need a GMAT or a GRE score, and in anticipation of this question, no, we don't have a preference. You'll need at least a couple of years of work experience before you apply. There's one supporting statement that we ask, is there anything you want the admissions committee to know about you that we can't find already from your application? There's an online assessment which involves answering 3 pre-recorded video questions by my team. You'll record and video your responses, and that forms part of your application. And that will go some way towards whether we interview you or not. And then if English is not your natural language or your mother tongue, and you don't work every day using English as your language of business, then you may have to take an English language proficiency test. Not everybody will have to do this. And so what I would say here is if you have any questions about your own individual circumstances, get in touch with me or with the team, and we'll be able to help answer that question for you as if whether we expect you to have an IELTS or a TOEFL score alongside your application. Applications are open now. They opened yesterday for this coming cycle. The deadlines are on the screen. So we've added 1 or 2 this year. We had 3 deadlines for the year that's just closed. We've added a couple more because we wanted to spread the volume out a little bit over the 12 months. What we often find is that January is the biggest window volume-wise by far. And that's probably because it coincides a lot with some deadlines for scholarships that expire after January. So everyone rushes to get in by January. So the year that's just finished, we had 1 stage in September and then 1 stage in January and nothing in between. And that gave us the biggest January window we ever had because the options for a candidate were either very early in September and then nothing until January. So most people waited until January, we think. That's why it was so busy. That's hard work for us. We don't mind that. That's not why we're changing it, but it makes it more competitive for you as a candidate. Because if you're in a January stage with 800 applications, standing out as one of the best applicants we have is harder for you to do because you're up against more competition and more candidates and more peers. By bringing in an October and a November stage before Christmas, it gives you more opportunity to think about when is the best time for you to apply. You don't feel the pressure that I think some people felt this year. Well, if it's not September, it has to be January because I don't want to wait until March. And so there's more option there now for you to spread that volume yourself over. So my overarching message here is, yes, there are some benefits to applying early, and I would encourage people to apply early if you can. We've talked about colleges already, but also the scholarships that we have to spend, they will begin to be given out from stage 1 onwards. So as we move through the stages, it's natural to think that there'll be less scholarship provision available to give out in March, in January. There'll still be some. We'll keep some money back on purpose, but there just won't be as much available in the later stages. So if scholarships are important to you, and let's be honest, an MBA is an expensive thing, then it's worth applying early. If your college of choice is important to you, if you really want to go for one of those colleges that only lets 3 people in, applying early is really important because you want to be at the head of that queue for consideration by that college. One thing I would say, folks, on scholarships, just quickly while we're on the topic, it's important to be honest with you about this and be upfront. I think it's natural that everyone who's dialed in today, who's sitting in from the office or working from home and listening to me talk about this, thinks, oh, I'm in a good place to get a scholarship. I think I'd be a good fit for this scholarship, or I think I'd be a competitive person for this scholarship. I don't mind sharing these numbers with you, but about 1 in 3 people that get admitted onto the program get some form of scholarship. And by some form, I mean anything from like £15,000 to £20,000, all the way up to full tuition costs covered and a living stipend. So there's a whole range of monetary values that we offer, but only 1 in 3 people get that support. So that's a minority of people. It sounds quite harsh, folks, and forgive me for saying it, but it's important to be honest here. Most of you listening in today will not get a scholarship. I hope all of you will, and some of you definitely will. And we're trying to do as much as we can to spread our scholarship provision as far and wide as we can. But the fact remains that most people will not get one. So that isn't to dissuade you from applying. That isn't to try and be negative about your chances in any way at all. I think all I'm saying is aim for a scholarship and hope for a scholarship and put yourself forward for all the scholarships that you want to. Please do all of those things. But at the same time, also have a plan in place that should you not be in that minority of people that get one, you're still able to afford to come because not everyone will get that scholarship. And so think about what your plan is, think about what your finances are, think about how you might also fund your MBA in the event that you might not get a scholarship. It's an important point to make. at the beginning of your journey, because while we'll try and be as generous as we can with our funds, and we do give it all out every year to very able and very competitive candidates, it's still a minority of people that get one. And that's important to be upfront about that at this stage, I think. This is the final slide, guys, before we go into some questions. Let me just check the time. Yeah, we've got 15 minutes left for questions, which is perfect. Let me go through the Q&A now and see if there's anything that I want to talk about in specifics. The quote on the screen is by our dean, Sumitra, so I'll leave you to read through that while I look at the Q&A box. And thank you for sending the questions through. I can see there's over 20 already in there. I'll try and get through as many as I can in the next 15 minutes, but I apologize in advance if I don't get to all of them, so forgive me. Let me have a look here. The application form requires 3 desired interview locations. Can these locations include cities outside of Great Britain? Yes, and that's what we want from you. So what we'll try and do, when we started this in the previous year, we understand that not everyone can come to Oxford for an interview. Your interview will mostly be on Zoom. The majority of people will have an interview via Zoom because you can't get here in person, and maybe we're not traveling to your part of the world when your interview takes person. So I think most of you will have a Zoom interview, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't harm your chances in any way at all. But the team is traveling to recruit, to meet candidates, to interview. So if you tell us where you would like us to be in terms of a city that you live in, a city that's commutable for you, somewhere that's quite close, then we will try and see if we have enough volume of interest to have a trip out to you, and we'll come to you and interview you in your hometown. Now, there has to be enough people there. We're not going to travel just for one person to interview you in person. We'd love to, but we don't have the team provision or the budget to do that. But if we have a critical mass of people that all say, I would like to be interviewed in San Francisco, and there's enough there to fill a few days of interviews, then we'll come and see you in San Francisco, because we know you can't all come to us in person here at Oxford. So hopefully that answers your question. But yes, those preferences, those options that you put in should definitely be outside of Great Britain, because we want to travel to you and make the effort to come to you rather than expect you to come to us. That's unfair. We wouldn't do that. I'm a dual national, which includes UK nationality. I have heard that Oxford takes a majority of international students. True. Would it still be okay for me to apply as a local candidate, or do you think my chances will increase if I apply as an international candidate? Yeah, really good question. We're not 97% international and 3% domestic through choice. There are fewer people from the UK that want to do an MBA. An MBA is not as developed an idea in the UK as some other parts of the world. And the people that do want to do an MBA in the UK might have spent their entire academic career in the UK and now want an international experience and might go to the States or might go to mainland Europe. So we're not turning Brits down in any way at all. You are equally valuable to us as any other nationality. So it won't harm your chances in any way. Which nationality you choose is the one in your application form. There's space on the application form to list both nationalities. So you can choose primary citizenship, and that can be whichever one you want. And you can have UK as the second or the first, and whichever other nationality you have as the second or the first. So we'll see that you're both. We'll see that you're dual nationality. And that helps us be more internationally diverse. So in some ways, dual nationality is a good thing. But it's certainly not going to hold you back if you choose to apply as a domestic student, not in any way at all. Please don't worry about that. We don't have quotas that we want to meet for nationalities. We look at strength of application first, and then nationality like a distant second or third. Will the recording be shared? I have to jump onto a work call. That was sent through 20 minutes ago. Sorry, guys. Yes, it will be recorded, and we will share it after the event. Thank you. Is someone who's mid-30s too old for the program? Good question. No, absolutely not. We have people that turn 40 or 41 while they're here with us for the year. There's no age limit. There's no maximum age that we look for. What we might talk to people about if they're getting up towards like the 10 to 15 years of experience themselves is who do they want to be surrounded by? So can you learn things that you think are relevant and contemporary from people that may only have 4 or 5 years of work experience, and you've got maybe double or more than that? Or would the executive MBA provide you with classmates and a cohort that you could learn more from? So we might have that conversation with you. But if you say to us, Liam, the one-year program, the full-time program is the one that I want, and here are my reasons why, we will not let your age stop you from being admitted. There's no such thing as too old for the MBA, but we'll ask you for your reasons as to why this is the program for you. And as long as you can provide a compelling answer, then you'll be absolutely fine. So no, it's not too old at all. Is it possible to submit my IELTS score after submitting my application? No, I'm afraid it's not. Your application will not be considered complete if there's anything missing. So if I go back to that application requirements slide, everything on this screen has to be complete and submitted before we consider your application to be submitted and ready to be reviewed. If you're aiming for the first deadline, September the 2nd, and on September the 3rd, we pull the applications off the system and we realize that you're missing something, we'll send you a little bit of a chaser. We might give you a day or two to upload that. But if you take too long, we'll just push you to the next deadline. We'll say, okay, we'll now consider you in stage 2. Please provide your IELTS score before stage 2 deadline on 1st of October. So you will not be considered in the stage you apply in if there's anything missing from your application. And that's anything on this slide. You have to have all of these things in and done and complete before these deadlines pass. Otherwise, you'll be in the next deadline. Hello, Liam. My wife and I are expecting a baby in February. Congratulations. Oh, I've just lost the question. Where has it gone? Here we are. Abdallah, thank you for the question. My wife and I are expecting a baby in February. I am looking into scholarship options for the MBA program. Could you please let me know if there are any programs at Oxford or through other organizations that could cover the full tuition and living expenses for our family of 3? There are scholarships that will cover tuition and living expenses. The living stipend is something around, depending on which scholarship we're talking about, will range from £16,000 to £20,000 for the year. Now, does that cover a family of 3? I don't know. I'm not in a family of 3. I know what my living expenses are as an individual person living in Oxford, but I obviously have a full-time job. So it's a bit of a yes and a no answer. Yes, there are scholarships to provide living stipends, but depending on the way that you live your life, the way that you stay within your means, how much you generally spend on food and entertainment and hobbies and things outside of the day-to-day living expenses of rent, then it may be that the living stipend doesn't cover a cost of a family of 3, especially if there's a newborn in there who will maybe need some childcare or, you know, an extra mouth to feed or an extra person to clothe, and they grow up quick, I'm told. So they'll need some new clothes like every few months. So I'm not trying to be flippant about this. The answer is yes, there are scholarships that can help you. And I would recommend, not just for you, Abdallah, but anyone else in the audience, to go onto the website and look at the scholarship search engine. You can find all the scholarships that are open to you, and you'll be able to apply for the ones that you think are most relevant to your situation. So look out for the ones that include a living stipend, and they're the ones you want to go for. But congratulations on the impending arrival of your child. Are there any January start dates? No, there's not. There's one cohort per year. It's a September start date. We only have one per year because it's a 12-month program. And we feel as though it would be tricky to manage 2 programs at once. The executive MBA has a couple of intakes a year, September and January, but the full-time MBA only has 1 intake, and it's always September. So there's no January start dates. All of the deadlines on the screen will get you in for the September 2025 class. There's just that 1 intake per year. Will Oxford ask me to retake the GMAT and improve my score if they like me as a candidate compared to rejecting me based on my score? It's a good question. Short answer is yes. If we think you're strong in lots of areas, but we think your GMAT score might be a little bit less competitive, we will sometimes give you a conditional offer of admission. And the condition is go away and try and improve your GMAT score. And we'll give you a target to aim for. And if you achieve that, then that condition is met, and then we make you a firm offer. If you don't achieve that, then the condition is not met, and then the offer will probably be withdrawn. So don't get me wrong, not everyone will get a conditional offer. Some people will just be rejected. Sadly, that's the way of the world. What I would say is that there's nothing on the application requirements slide, and I'll put that back on the screen. There's nothing on this slide that will make or break your application on its own, because you'll all have strengths in your application. It might not be your standardized test score. It might be your career. It might be your skill set. It might be your references are particularly strong. So nothing on here will be the reason for a no on its own. it might contribute towards the no, but it won't be a sole thing that is not good enough to let you in. So some people will just be rejected. We don't think they're a strong enough candidate. We don't think that we're looking for, that's what we're looking for. Or maybe we don't think we are in a position to help you achieve what you want to achieve in your career. But some people who are strong in lots of areas, but maybe down or need developing in one, could get a conditional offer. That is an option that we have exercised in the past, and we probably will continue to do so over the next few months as we start applications coming through for this next cohort. Let's have a look here. What is the admissions percentage? I don't mind sharing these numbers. Good question. We have something in the region of 1,600 to 1,700 applications each year, thereabouts. We have something in the region of 320, 330, 340 students, roughly thereabouts. So top of your head maths means that, roughly speaking, 1 in 5 people get in. And that's actually get in. In terms of interview, we probably interview about half of everybody who applies. And then from the interview then down to who gets in, there's another percentage there as well. So I would say the selectivity is about 1 in 5, about 20% of students that apply will end up with a place. Interview selectivity is about 50%. So half of that apply will get an interview. And then obviously not everyone makes it past interview, and that's where it drops down again to 20%. So hopefully that answers your question. It's not as selective probably as the large American schools that get 7,000 applications for a class of maybe 500 or 600, but it's not easy to get into, folks. You still have to, and the question wasn't alluding to this, don't worry, but you still have to try and put your best foot forward and submit a strong application, because there are a lot of people fighting for the same spot as you are, and you want to make sure you're as competitive as you possibly can be. Okay, what time do we have? Okay, we've got 3 minutes. Let's get through as many of these questions as we can. Answered that one already. Do students bid for electives? Great question. Yes. So it's kind of a points-based system. Let's keep the maths easy and say you've got 10 electives to pick. If you don't do any extra in the summer, you just do those 10 that everybody does, and you have 100 points to bid for your electives. So somebody might think, okay, I know what 10 I want. I'm going to bid equally, and of my 100 points, I'll break it down into 10 points per elective. 10 times 10, 100 points. That's how I'll spend my points. Other people will think there's one elective that I really want to do, that I need to get this elective done so that I can get the career that I want. I'm going to use a majority of points for that one elective. I'm going to make sure I get it by bidding 25 points for that one elective to make sure that I'm one of the top bidders for that elective. That leaves you only with 75 points now to bid on the other 9. So it's a balance, right? What I would say, we will always do our best to make sure that we accommodate everybody that wants to do the electives. We might double up the teaching. We might run a second stream. In my 8 years at the school, folks, I've never known someone not get an elective they want because of capacity issues. We'll always put on a second stream for you or ask faculty to double their teaching hours. So please don't panic. There is a bidding system, and you will be outbid possibly by other people, and you will outbid other people yourself. And normally, you know, the top 50 people that have bid the most points will be the first 50 into that elective. But if we've had 80 people bid for the elective and the bottom 30 don't get it, that's enough people to run a second iteration of that elective. And that's what we'll do more often than not. So please don't panic too much if your bidding doesn't work out the way that you want to. But yes, it's a bidding process. And because the electives start in kind of the middle of Hillary, which is kind of February time, the bidding process will start in December in advance of that. Time for 1 or 2 more. Let's have a look. Is 23 too young for applying? And also, is the experience considered full-time after studies, or can be fractioned or during studies? 23 is not too young. The 2 years of experience caveat still stands. It doesn't have to be once you've graduated, you then work for 2 years. Some people work first and then go to college later. Some people work full-time during their university years, and that counts. We generally define it as full-time paid employment. So if it's an internship and it lasts 3 months over the summer, if it was full-time and paid, that counts towards your 2 years. So again, like, there's no such thing as too old. There's no such thing as too young either, but we do want you to have some level of work experience so that you can contribute to the discussions in the classroom and share your experiences of your work life so far. That's why we have that condition in there. But no, it's not too young. Okay, time for one more. Let's have a look. Let's see which is the best one to have. Are there separate applications for the scholarships? Great question. We have two pots of money. One pot is given to us to control by the school and by the Said Foundation, the foundation that financially supports the school. And then we have another pot of money that is donated by external organizations or organizations within the university that are linked to the school. So as an example, the Skoll Scholarship is a donation by the Skoll Centre. Other scholarships, you might hear something about future leaders in the news. Recently, we announced a new scholarship by our main donor, our main benefactor, Mr. Wafiq Saeed. The school's named after him. That future leaders money is money that we can control ourselves. So for money that we control, there's nothing you have to do to apply. As soon as you're admitted onto the program, you are eligible for that money. For things like Skoll, for things like Laidlaw, for things like Weidenfeld-Hoffmann, these are names of scholarships that are given to us by other organizations. They will have their own application process for their scholarship, as well as the application process for admission onto the program. So if you're thinking about going for one of those scholarships, really research and take some time to understand what they're looking for and do you fit that profile, but also what essays do you have to write to be able to put yourself forward for that scholarship, as well as the essay you have to write for the admission onto the program itself. These scholarships will have an essay requirement. They'll often have an interview requirement before you are awarded the scholarship. And so there's a slightly separate, but kind of running concurrently with your admissions decision, there'll be a separate scholarship decision as well. But yeah, take the time to research scholarships on the website, find the ones that you think you're a good fit for, and then just double check what the application requirements are for the funding, because they might be quite different from the application requirements for your place in the MBA itself. I hope that answers the question. Guys, I'm sorry, we ran out of time. I didn't get through as many as I would have liked, but thank you very much for joining today. It's been really great to have so many of you turn up. If you have any questions, reach out to me, reach out to the team. Let me put the email address on the screen quickly for you. This is the email address to use. Get in touch with any queries you have. Come and see us at the school. If you find yourself in the UK or close to Oxford, drop by. We'll show you around. We have an open day in October. If you want to come and formally experience the school, there'll be a taster lecture. There'll be some existing students you can talk to. There'll be a lunch we'll provide. Come and have a look around yourself. There's a lot to be said about how it feels to be here and whether it feels like a good fit for you. I'm happy to carry on the conversation with anyone. Find me on LinkedIn, folks. Connect with me on there. We can have a conversation. I'll be in London a few times over the next month or so to have some individual one-to-ones in person. So look out for that on our events webpage. If it's not me, it'll be one of the team that travels down there to meet you if you're based in London. Keep in touch. Keep the conversation going. We hope to see an application from you very soon. But thank you very much for coming today, and goodbye for now. And we'll send out a recording of this webinar in the next couple of days. Thank you, and see you soon.